Welcome all, and I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting. This is a special meeting, Thursday, November 29th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And if you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated.
The box is back.
So this is a special meeting for a number of reasons. One main one is, it's not often that I get my boards together in one room at one time. In this room, at this time, you have enough volunteers that keep this town running. This town board is 5 individuals, 4 part-time, 1 full-time, and we couldn't run this town without the people that are sitting out there in the room on the planning board, the architectural review board, and the open space committee. So I want to commend you all for your time and effort.
And the zoning board.
And the zoning board is here, yes, and the zoning board.
That's and all the boards for that matter.
Right, whether they're here or not, we want to thank you. So our first item of business is, what? Roll call.
That is.
That's our first item of business.
It is.
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Here.
Councilman Richard G. Cucci.
Here.
Councilman Anthony J. Sirico.
Here.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr.
Here.
Supervisor Rick Morrison.
Present.
Present. Yeah,
I think the,
Andreas? Okay,
You guys can't hear out of luck.
so you can hear us here and the people at home can hear us.
We'll
through the
talk
mic.
loud.
maybe.
Oh, I got it.
Speak up.
Okay, our first item of business this evening is to hear from the Somers Academy. This is a proposal, adaptive reuse of the IBM campus. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mark Weingarten up to begin the presentation.
Do we need to relocate?
Yes, and we're going to relocate our seats.
Okay.
Mark, have you added anything?
Okay. Is this the same one, Eric?
It's a little, mostly slightly different, but.
Is there a test? Did you notice what was different on it? That's a good idea, though. You got that one? I'll leave that there.
I can pull up the edge, though. We'll manage. Have to.
You got enough room, Richie?
I'm fine.
All set?
For lights, right?
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board, various chair people, and members of the other boards that are here this evening. My name is Mark Weingarten. I am a partner in the law firm of Del Bello, Dinellen, Weingarten, Wise, and Wiedeker, and it's my pleasure to be here representing 294 Route 100 LLC and its agent, Sebastian Capital, the landlord of the property, together with Evergreen Ridge LLC, which is the school, in connection with their request for the requisite town approvals, including but not limited to a text change to the town's existing zoning regulations, subdivision approval, site plan approval, and other various approvals to enable the development of a for-profit boarding and day world-class STEM high school, grades 9 through 12, on the property located at 294 Route 100, formerly known as the IBM campus. And yes, that's a mouthful, but we'll go through all of that so everybody understands exactly what we're asking for. First and foremost, on behalf of the landlord, I want to thank the town supervisor, the town board for putting this extraordinary meeting together. We have a very ambitious schedule, and it's going to be difficult for us to meet it. It will not happen without a public-private partnership that we will talk about the need for in order for this to be accomplished. And meetings like this are exactly what is needed for something like this to happen on the schedule that we've set out. So we are genuinely appreciative of it, and we look forward to the dialogue and understanding better tonight the process and the things that need to be studied in order for us to do our job, to give you the information so that you can do your job in analyzing and reviewing our proposal. So we thank you for that. You can flip to the next slide if you like, Eric, thanks. If approved, no, the one before, didn't you have a second one? There you go. That's fine.
That's the first one.
That's fine. There is one in between, but that's okay. If approved, the changes that we request to the OB 100 district, it will permit the proposed use on approximately 345 of the 723 total site acres, which appear on 4 lots, which we'll show you in a subdivision map in a bit. The changes will also, however, limit certain uses on the remainder of the property. So people ask us, what are you asking for? What does the development consist of? The school is on roughly a little bit more than half of the acreage of the site. It's 345 acres. It uses all of the 5 IMPay design buildings that you've seen up there on the top of the hill with the beautiful rooftop, the pyramid. It will use all of those, and we'll get into that, exactly what we're gonna plan to do within those structures. But there is also remaining undeveloped land that's on the site, and it will stay there. We have no plan for it. If we ever decide to do anything with it, we would have to come back to the town and ask for permission to do it. So we just want to make it clear, and we'll go through some maps to show you exactly. As you are all aware, the former IBM campus was an important part of the fabric of the Somers community, not to mention its vital economic importance. But like many corporate campuses in this region, it needs to be repurposed. We have this going on all over the Hudson Valley region as the office market is consolidating and frankly contracting. And so, for example, out on Route 287 in Harrison and White Plains, you see these office parks being changed into new uses. You see hospitals going up, schools going up. You see them being converted to retail, and there are a lot of medical uses as well. So we have to get smart as to what we're going to do. We have commercial property on our tax rolls, and we have to figure out what the uses are if you don't have office use. Here in Somers, you've been blessed. You have 2 huge corporate campuses, and we'll talk in a moment about Sebastian Capital, the owner, 294 out of Mexico, and the fact that they also own the Pepsi campus. And unlike other places in Westchester, they are committed in keeping that as an office campus. And they are multi-tenanting that space now. And they are going to, in their minds, put that roughly 1 million square feet back in as office use, which would be to the great benefit of Somers. But there's just too much property when you combine it with the IBM property to have an office use there. It would take decades to be able to fill it up with the current market. So we needed to come up with another idea, and we think this is the idea to fill up the property and be a great win-win for everybody involved. As I mentioned, the school's going to repurpose the 5 IMPay designed, interconnected, iconic buildings. They total about 1.2 million square feet. So it's quite it's really a feather in the cap of this town that we're going to be able to fill up all of those buildings and put them forward to a productive use. It's a beautiful campus. You can see it up there. We'll show you more in a little bit. Eric, let's just flip through those next slides. You can see the outdoors of the building, how beautiful they are. The interiors are amazing. It really lays out for a school. You can see that could be a great auditorium. They have cafeterias there, high ceilings. This is going to be converted to academic space. It's going to be converted to dormitories for the kids. It's going to be, it's going to be beautiful. We'll go through it a little bit more as we go on. We have put together what we believe is the appropriate team to make this happen. I mentioned to you Evergreen Ridge. They are the school development entity. Tim DeCipia, who's the CEO, is here with us tonight. The last couple of presentations we did, Tim went very much at length as to what the school is about and how it's going to work. We're not going to do that tonight. We'll give you a very brief overview of it. Tonight's focus is on the environmental review, but for those of you that are interested, I know that we have things on the website. We have all of the information that you'd like, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. and I assure you there are going to be many hearings as we go through the next months, but we've already made 2 presentations with respect to the school. As far as the team's concerned, I mentioned Sebastian Capital. They're a family business out of Mexico. They are very deeply capitalized, and we're very happy to have them here because they can make this occur, and they are partnering with Evergreen Ridge. I do have a message from you. Most of you have gotten to know Roxana Duran from Sebastian, who's the representative. She deeply apologizes for not being here. She's been at all the meetings. She had a family event that she had to be at. I know that she even called the supervisor to apologize. She felt terrible. Cesar Corte is here from the company. He is in charge of that campus and has been for many years, IBM and Pepsi now. He is here if we have any questions specifically with respect to Sebastian. But also and again, not everyone's here tonight. We've had him at the past meetings. Titan Partners is a world-class, the leader in investment banking, having to do with putting the capital together for schools throughout the world. KG&D Architects, you'll hear from Eric Kyer in a moment. They're our architects, together with Pay Partnership Architects, the original architects on the site. They're working together on that. Avison Young is here, our commercial real estate advisor. We also have with us my partner, Peter Wise from the Del Bello firm. You'll hear from Bonnie Von Olson. Also, John Canning is here from Kimley Horn. They're our planners, our traffic consultants, the people who will be putting these reports together with your consultants that are here tonight. We have Rich Williams from Insight Engineering, our engineers, and some of the other people, Evans Associates doing our wetlands work, and Thompson and Bender, our media work. So that's our team. Just briefly, as again we said, we're going to just do very quick about the school. It's a world-class STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. You throw in the arts, they now call it STEAM, that's the new acronym. It's something that everyone is talking about. It is the focus that we need in our schools. They're creating these at the college level, they're creating these at the PhD level and postgraduate level, such as the Cornell Tech campus down in New York. And there's a need for high schools that focus on this, and that's what we're looking for as far as the market is concerned. It's grades 9 through 12. We're looking to open in 2020. The unique curriculum I just mentioned, it's for profit, so they pay taxes. I know that's important, and we're talking about creating a state-of-the-art institution which this town can be very proud of. We're talking about a student enrollment at its maximum at 1,800. We'll be phasing it in over the first few years, 750, 1,300, and then finally the 1,500 to 1,800 range. We talk about 85% of the students being boarding, 15% day is what we expect based on what we've seen elsewhere, and roughly teachers and staff of about 235. I mentioned to you that we're going to be reusing the buildings. We're also going to be adding additional facilities such as athletic facilities and fields, an art center, hiking trails, and an appropriate residence for a headmaster. We'll show you where those are going in a moment. We've mentioned our goals. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Eric Kyer, who's our architect, who's going to run through the site plan, and then he's going to turn it over to Bonnie Von Olson, who's our planner, who's going to go through the issues as to what the studies are needing to be done in order for us to complete the state environmental quality review work that has to be done before the approvals are granted. Eric? Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Eric Kyer, KGD Architects, Principal and Vice President of the firm. And we have a 30-second video here which will give you a little bit of an overview. If you haven't had an opportunity to be up on campus, this is what the campus looks like today. There are 5 interconnected buildings. There's over 3,000 parking spaces on the campus. It's nicely landscaped open space. And right now you're looking at the front edge of the ring road, which is about is it not pushed going forward? All right, well,
Eric, is this from was that on the south looking north or east looking
that's
west?
from the south looking north.
West,
You're looking at the central building here. There are 4 office buildings that are 4 plus stories tall. You're looking at 2 of those right there. That's building 3 and building 4, which we'll talk about in a second. You can see a bunch of the open space that's right there. As was mentioned, this is IMPay design signature style with the glass atriums in front of all the buildings. Here's looking in one of the atriums, that's in the central building right there, looking down, looking across. There's 4 interconnecting corridors that lead to the triangular buildings, and you just were looking at one of the atrium spaces in one of those triangular buildings. Apologize, that was a little rough there, but it gave you a general impression. Just go to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a partial site plan. It shows the ring road and the buildings and site work within that ring road that we will be somewhat modifying for this project. So there's 5 existing buildings. Go back, please. Stay there. 5 existing buildings, and that's what you see in yellow, and you can see the existing connecting corridors there. There's large fields of parking, which is in gray, and you can see the ring road that wraps around that. We're proposing a 3-phase construction project, and this is phase 1. Stop there for a second. This is conceptual planning, and please understand that some of the existing site conditions may impact the ultimate layout of what we're doing here. We're not talking about changing any of the buildings. The exterior of the buildings, as you see today, will remain. However, as we're looking at playing fields and future additions for an art center and for a field house, gymnasium, depending on wetlands and other existing site conditions, it may modify this slightly. So just keep that in mind. We will provide a final or updated plan most likely within the coming weeks, as we have information coming in shortly. But again, there will be no plan changes to the exterior. So this is phase 1. In orange are the buildings that we will be, by the time phase 1 is complete, have renovated. That includes on the right, and I think I have something that might be able to help people. So this is the central building right here. It will have the administration, the cafeteria is in there. You saw a slide earlier of an interior auditorium. That's part of that. The library, media center most likely will be there. In the lower level, the design center, art and music, will be a part of this central building. One of the triangular buildings, building 3, will be converted into a dormitory, all 4 levels, and the other building will, over the course of 3 phases, be built out for academic use. Phase 1, the ground floor and first and second floor will be built out, and then as additional students are entering the campus over phase 2 and phase 3, those phases will be built out. One last thing here, John, before you slide, is you can start to see that some of the parking that you saw on the previous slide has now been converted into playing fields. So that's parking now, that becomes playing field. This area right here becomes playing field. You're having fun with it, aren't you, John? How about phase 2, please? Thank you. So now the orange areas are the next phase, phase 2, probably year 2 of what we would be doing second. Adding an additional dormitory, building 2, doing another level renovation to building 4, and then constructing new construction for an athletic center and an arts center, currently proposed here, as well as a headmaster or head of school residence. And you can see that there's some additional playing fields also proposed to be developed over the second phase. Phase 3, please. So phase 3, building 1 gets renovated as dormitories. So at that point, we'll have 3 triangular buildings as dormitories. The final floor would be built out of building 4 for academics. And the whole central area here will be the balance of the academics. And then finally, there's some additional modification. You can see this is parking lot in phase 1 and 2. And by the time we hit phase 3, we've filled out the parking. We've reduced parking on campus from 3,200 cars down to about 600 cars, which is about the number of parking spaces that we feel that we need. Next. Okay, now I will turn this over to Bonnie, and she can talk about some of the other site issues associated with this. But right here, you can see that's the aerial, and you can see the ring road that wraps around. It's a 1.75 miles wrapping around there, and all the work that we're proposing is inside that ring road.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bonnie Von Olson. I'm a landscape architect and planner with Kimberly Horn in White Plains. And John, if you could go to the next one, I'm going to start with the bigger picture. This is the entire site, 723 acres. Here's Route 100 on this side, the existing entrance there. Here's the townhouse and the town center right there. The reservoir on the other side, 684 and North Salem over here. And the entrance on 116 is here, and the other entrance on 138 is over here. So as you can see, this is the ring, the loop road that Eric was referring to. And this part of this project is to subdivide the central part of the site for the school. So this is the subdivision plan map, so I thought I'd start with the big picture. This parcel right here, I believe it's 345 acres or so is the school. This parcel here is for the utilities. There's a wastewater treatment plant and water system, central systems, just for this campus that are self-contained on this site. And then there's a parcel here that's 110 acres, and a parcel on this side that's 232 acres. Each of those has a road access out, as I showed you before, onto 138 and 116. As you know from driving around town, I'm sure you really can't, except for on 684 and a couple select places, maybe from Heritage Hills, you can see the tops of the pyramids, but generally driving along Route 100, you see the entry road, but you don't see the buildings up on the top of the hill.
Bonnie, I'm sorry, perhaps into the mic.
Okay.
We can hear, but at home, these people will be interested in what you have to say, I'm sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
John, could you go back to the one right before that? So, as Eric said, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the existing conditions. The loop road, the buildings, and the parking lots are all very evident there. There are, it's, as you know, generally a hilltop, and it slopes off in all directions away from the loop road. Here you can see the wastewater treatment plant is off. This is the entrance from Route 100. Comes up here to the loop, and then those are the other two spur roads. There are, obviously, it's been a campus since 1980s, and they have their own, as I said, water and sewer system, stormwater. There's wooded areas, there's open lawns and meadows. And our wetlands expert, Beth Evans, was out there to investigate the site, and some of the stormwater facilities and drainage areas along the edges will probably be regulated as local wetlands, as well as one spot up here in this meadow. She's flagged them, and we're in the process of getting them surveyed by Insight, and then we'll have them verified by the town, obviously. So we don't know about that aspect of, it's one of our site constraints that we're gonna have to work with if it's conflicting with the fields or something that we've already laid out. That's what Eric was referring to in terms of, we might be working on our concept plan a little bit when we get all of the site constraints identified. Rich from Insight has also walked the site with DEP to assure there's no, or not to assure, to confirm where the regulated water courses are for DEP. This is in the DEP watershed. As you saw, the reservoir is right directly downhill. And for this site, we're going to be petitioned already to get the zoning amendment, as Mark said, special exception use permit, a comprehensive plan amendment, subdivision, as I said, site plan, and then as we determine what's necessary, if there might be possibly wetland permits, tree removal permits, or steep slope permits. However, it's the steep slopes are primarily all around the outside of the loop road. It's relatively flat up there. We'll also obviously need water and sewer approvals, just because of the change of use from office use to a school. There'll be residential use there, and that's really the primary difference. It's a use that in many ways is much less intense than the office campus was, but as I said, it's just different because you'll have people living there. There may be different fire codes, there may be different water demands. Obviously for a school, a science school with labs and classrooms and people living there as opposed to office space. So as a basis for our environmental review, that's really where we're taking the environmental analysis will be comparing the former use as the office campus to the school. So there's a series of reports that we're putting together, and we started with the list that your town planner provided with us, and we've supplemented it and come up with what we feel we're gonna study, and we've already started those studies. And you can go to the next slide, John. Next one. This is a long list. I'm not going to read through them all, but generally, the description of the school, the staff and the student population, the need and the purpose for the project, the student life, the student events, activities that might occur on the campus. As I said already, land use and zoning, the natural resources, the anticipated limit of disturbance. You know, we prepared our environmental assessment form to get the seeker process started. We anticipate about 60 acres of disturbance. We'll refine that more as we go along. And we have more information about our plan. The traffic and parking is anticipated to be much less, but it will compare the campus use as opposed to the office use as opposed to the school campus. Stormwater and sanitary sewer water, all of those will be reevaluated with the new use. We'll do a fiscal analysis and analyze the taxes. Community services in terms of busing from the public schools, if there's any requirement there. The impact to the library, police, fire and emergency, security on campus. What are the students' level of supervision and who lives in the dorms with them, and all of that kind of information that I'm sure you're interested in about the school itself and the students that'll be living there and the students that'll be commuting as well. Obviously, there's a large open space component as well, and other aspects might be of interest, for instance, with the sports and all the athletic fields, the noise and the lighting that might be proposed. The other building that we talked, I'm not sure if you mentioned, was there will probably be a headmaster's house installed eventually, maybe not in the first phase, but just a residence for the headmaster. In addition to the new structures would be the athletic fields, field house, a future arts center, and the future headmaster's house. Everything else is within the existing structures. So with that, do you want to say another word?
So I just want to also make it clear with respect to the school, there's a process. We're talking about a couple of years before we would actually be opening our doors. So, at this point, there are some questions, but we're expecting to hire a headmaster within the first quarter of next year. So there's a group of people that get hired at the beginning that are part of the creation of the school. Obviously, you don't hire all your teachers 2 years out, and we're going to have to go through an approval process, and then it'll take a year to construct and for the first phase and all those things. So it's a work in progress, but all of these things that we mentioned to you, we have to study what they call, the worst case scenario. The most students you can have on the campus, the most staff you can have on the campus, how much traffic could that possibly generate? How all of these things that they're talking about studying, we're going to have to study all of those things. So we're going to, the better we can narrow it down, the less we have to study. But right now we have to start with the general, and we'll be studying from that process. So that's where we start. As far as process, the town board has declared their intent to be lead agency. We hope they're going to declare that this evening, and we're very anxious to go forward and get the work started. So that's our presentation, and now we're available for whatever else you need. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we could turn on the lights and... Yeah, I'm not sliding anywhere yet.
Oh, sorry.
There, okay.
That was me.
So So at this point in the meeting, what I'd like to do is introduce our town planner, Saret Dim, who can lead us through a discussion, go over some items that are of interest to the boards that are here today. And this is an open forum. We can ask questions and begin the process. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'm here with the team from the town that's going to review this. I'm the Director of Planning for the town. Joe Barbagallo from Woodard and Curran is the consulting town engineer, and Mike Galante is going to work with us from Frederick P. Clark Associates as the traffic consultant on this project. Bonnie gave you a brief overview of the items that we've identified for study. Initially, her firm gave us a brief listing of it. With input from me, from Joe, and from Mike, we went back and we gave a more detailed description of the items that we want them to study. We had a further discussion last week about some additional items. I'd like to just give a little bit more detail on some of those things. And then the purpose of this meeting is, after we have identified those items that we think it's important that the applicant provide to the town in terms of environmental studies, that the boards and the public that is here identify things that they also think are important, that either they'd like more detail on, that we may have already identified, or things even that we may have not identified that they think are appropriate for study. So that's the purpose of this meeting. That's why we have everybody here, so that we make sure we get a broad overview and impact from all of those people that really have a say in terms of land development in the town. So I'm going to go through items that I deal with, then I'm going to turn it over to Joe to deal with some of the more technical items that his firm deals with, and then to Mike Galante to just give a brief overview of where he is on his concerns about traffic. So as Bonnie said, they will provide us with a detailed description of what you saw tonight, so that we understand what the proposed action under the SECRA process is, and the details of what the phasing is and how that will happen over time. So that's important to understand, both from a traffic point of view and from a demographic point of view. From the land use side, there will be a need to make an amendment to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan at the time identified both this campus office and the Pepsi office as potentially available for reuse, but it had not identified what those uses would be. So we need to really just round out the language of that and provide an amendment to the comprehensive plan as part of that. We need to identify, as Mark said, what the zoning will be, and in some of the zoning that was part of the petition, there are things that were not known enough at that time, such as what the overall floor area ratio of the buildings would be, that is the amount of square footage in each of the buildings, both existing and those to be proposed, relative to the amount of land. Now we know that there are going to be 4 parcels, that the school itself will only be on one of those parcels. So we needed to understand what those things will be. When they give us the detailed site plan, we'll be able to fill out the remainder of those, and those will be more fully described as part of the studies that will be provided. Go through some of the other items. Demographics, again, it's important to understand, though they have identified that about 85% of the students will be boarding students, we need to have a fuller picture of what the campus calendar will be, when those students will be coming and going to the campus, what will happen, particularly during the summer months when they may not be fully occupying the campus, what the school plans to utilize the campus for, how much of those dorms may or may not be occupied, et cetera. So those are things that we'll need to find out about that. In terms of the faculty, whether any of those faculty will be from the surrounding area, traveling far distances, et cetera, and how that demographic compares to the IBM, which may have had flex time coming to and from the campus, not necessarily all 9 to 5, which is something obviously that will feed into the traffic. In terms of community services, how this will mesh with the Somer Central School District. The town already, we know, has a large private school, though it is a commuter school, in Kennedy Catholic High School, how this will relate to that. In terms of a on-campus facility with 1,800 students living on campus, what we would anticipate in terms of what they will provide in terms of on-campus security, how that would impact the local police department, fire and emergency services, solid waste. They have identified a lot of new fields on the site, open space and recreation. It certainly would appear that they are adequate to serve, but also we'd want to know what anticipated use of local facilities there might be. And then, on the other hand, the zoning will specify how and when potentially the town and/or the school district may make use of some of their facilities. We will want them to make it clear to the town what exactly that kind of cross-use could potentially be. In terms of the fiscal impact, obviously, IBM had a long-term positive fiscal impact on the town and its tax base. We'll have a full analysis of how this will compare to whatever it was that the taxes were that were generated by IBM and what those would be by the school. And then the sort of the details of the overall community character, how this will affect the overall community character of the town. In terms of historic sources and archaeological resources, there may have been studies that were done at the time that IBM did their study looking into what the archaeological disturbances were. Largely, the campus was disturbed at the time, but we do want to understand what, if any, new impacts there might be. And certainly, the issue of these iconic IMK buildings, we've heard essentially will remain the same, but we will want to know something about, the details of how they will remain the same. In terms of noise and lighting, we know that there'll be a lot of students on this campus, they'll be living on this campus. What does that mean in terms of overall noise, particularly in terms of any athletic facilities that may be used for, use with other schools that may be visiting the campus, what those routines would be, and that would also affect traffic. And again, how those fields may or may not be lighted in terms of which ones will be, how many will be, and what the impact of that would be in terms of visual impact on the community. So those are the land use planning aspects. I'd like to turn it over to Joe to go over what the technical impacts, and then Mike will take it over for traffic.
Thank you. All right, so this is awkward. All right, so the pieces that we'll be supporting and working on, we're going to start with the natural resources, right? Looking at the earthworks, looking at the cut and fills on site, making sure we understand how we're going to manage the soils. More globally, we're also going to be supporting on a lot of the items that Saret went through. Like, for example, lighting, we'll be the ones doing the analysis on the review of the lighting information that's provided or some of the noise information. So we'll be supporting a lot of the very general site planning elements. I think there's nothing that sticks out to me, that I think is worth pointing out. I think the lighting and the noise are very important things for us to understand, right? Once we start getting into the site, there's not a whole lot of cut and fill going on. We need to understand what it is and understand if there's going to be trucks coming off that might contribute to the traffic or that might contribute to, community, just general community character. But getting into the real technical, I think the pieces that are going to be the most critical for us to look at are really the water issues, right? Are going to be the stormwater issues, right? We're removing a bunch. The project is removing a bunch of impervious. There's an existing stormwater system there. Understanding that balance in the context of current regulations to make sure that we're getting appropriate levels of management and treatment of all of the stormwater coming from the site. One of the benefits for this project is the ring road actually does create somewhat of a bathtub for the site, which is very positive. It was constructed that way and remains that way to this day. So that's going to help us in that regard. But we still have to make sure that all of the criteria are met around the stormwater. The Watershed Inspector General has expressed an interest, so we'll be coordinating with that office as part of this project as well. The next critical item, and which is really that I think is probably where our biggest, most detailed, I shouldn't say biggest challenge, but our most detailed level of review has to really occur on the water supply and wastewater. There's existing wells. They haven't been used at the capacities they've been permitted at for a while, so demonstrating that we're going to be able to provide enough water to serve this campus is going to be very important, as well as making sure that the quality is appropriate for the type of use that we're looking at. And then on the other end is is looking at the wastewater disposal facility. There's an existing treatment plant on site. It has a little over 100,000 gallons a day worth of capacity, and the way the numbers are starting to come together from what we've seen on a preliminary basis is it's going to be pretty close relative to the flows. So the flows are looking like they may match up. I know that Rich has some more work to do, but we started talking on that, but at least the preliminary indications are positive. I think it's, we do have to look at the loads though, right? The wastewater character is going to be much different. We have people living here now. Right, so there's different types of usage, different types of quality coming on the wastewater. So we'll have to make sure that the treatment aspects are such that we can appropriately treat the wastewater to the standards that go with its permit. Those are what I think are the most critical items. We also will be involved in broader groundwater understanding and issues, broader soil understanding. And items that come up around that, the terrestrial and aquatic ecology. But as far as what I see as the broadest issues, it's going to be those. It's going to be around the utilities, it's going to be around the water, and it's going to be around the wastewater. That's where I see the biggest technical focus from an engineering perspective. Of course, like I said, on the site plan, we will be working on some of those little nuances, working closely with Mike's office on interior pedestrian circulation, traffic circulation. Do we have areas to, the boring stuff like where we're going to put the snow, and those critical items that are important to a site plan. So we'll be commenting on those. We also have a lot of experience with athletic fields, so we'll be looking at the athletic fields and providing any input that we could to make sure that we have sustainable athletic facilities on site as well.
Thank you, Mike Galante. Interesting. I actually worked on the traffic studies when IBM was built back in the 80s. I was about 12 years old, but I started working on it. So there's some history here. But as far as the traffic study, this is a developed site, as was mentioned by Mark. You're seeing this all over Westchester County where buildings are being repurposed along 287 in a significant way. And Somers has an opportunity here to have a school and redevelop it, and then we need to evaluate the impacts of a school versus an IBM from years ago. But some of the steps we would need to go through with a typical traffic study is certainly to determine the scope of the traffic study. What intersections do we count? In this case, what is the design year, meaning when will it be at full occupancy with the 1,800 students? It's not next year, it's a few years or several years out, and typically we would analyze that year as far as for comparison purposes. In this case, we need to decide what is the site traffic. It's a unique type of school, not unique, but it's something new. So they have boarding and day students coming in and out. We actually have a lot of experience with private schools in Connecticut. We've done many schools in Connecticut over the years. So we need to look at and discuss site traffic with John Canning. We started having those discussions already. We need to sit down actually and do this a little bit more. We need the hours of the school, the operation, the class hours in this type of school or any school, after-school activities, events, football games, soccer, whatever it might be, weekends, after school. That impacts traffic. We need to look at that. These roads were certainly built for an IBM years ago. There were 3 access drives, which is very nice, 3 different state highways. I don't envision changing the roads or changing the access drives, but we need to reanalyze those to make sure they operate in that future design year. From a parking perspective, there are a lot of parking spaces there that are not needed in the future, but we need to determine what is the right number of parking spaces to accommodate students that may be driving, staff, and so on, and where the parking lots are. And as Joe mentioned, and with any school, safety is important. Pedestrian activity, vehicles on the campus, school buses, and most important, safety of the students. So that's a very important piece of the analyses, and we'll be working on this with John Canning and staff from the team for quite a while. And that's where we are at this point.
So, I mean, at this point, you want to just open it up for the group here. Anything we've missed? Yes, sir. Come on up.
His name is Arthur Singer. There's a lease on this property, and I'm wondering what the term of the lease is. Follow what I'm saying? The property is being leased from how many years? Because there's a lot of work being put into this, I'm just wondering how long it would be.
Right.
Sebastian owns this.
Correct.
Right, and so you want to know how long is the lease that they plan to have on this?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what yeah, I was going to say that's something I can't answer at this point because we don't know.
Second question. Apparently, the decision has been made to make the town board lead agency. Usually, the planning board has that expertise. What went into that decision?
We are the town board and responsible for all major development in the town. Our planning board serves at the leisure of the town board. We appoint members to them. They have an expertise in planning. This is so important of a project that we've taken over lead agency status.
May
Doesn't
I add
preclude-
to
Well,
that?
also,
But it doesn't preclude their participation, that's why.
the
they're all
zoning
here.
change,
Doesn't have anything-
zoning changes are only done by the town board, too.
Zoning text
Yeah,
amendment.
there's two actions that require the town board to be lead agency, and that is a change in zoning and a change in the comprehensive plan. The two actions that the planning board will work on are the site plan approval and the subdivision approval. And both of those will kind of work in tandem, but the SECRA portion of it will come first in terms of the analysis, but as we are here tonight, there will be input as we go along from all of these boards. As soon as the site plan is available and that application is made to the planning board, that will start to be processed, that and the subdivision application will start to be processed through the planning board while the town board is continuing as lead agency on the zone change and the comprehensive plan amendment.
I have a follow-up question. Mark, just regards to the lease, I understand it's under negotiation. I thought I understood that there was going to be an equity participation.
There is.
Okay, with
But there-
Sebastian Capital.
Sebastian Capital is an equity participant on this project, but it is accurate that there will be a lease between the landlord and Evergreen, or whatever the name of the school is at that point. We've probably changed the name of the entity at that point, but there will be a lease that will be involved, but that is under negotiation right now.
So from my perspective, I think that's important. I mean, we have a committed partner here.
Absolutely.
My name's Robert Madigan, and I've spoke to you guys before.
Yeah.
I think this is a great project, something really exciting to happen in Somers. I was a little bit taken by the idea of floodlights or school lights on fields.
You may want to
IBM
just make sure you speak into
Sure.
that.
IBM, as we all know, it's been a private facility. Not many people realize it's even there. They only know it by the IMP buildings, the pyramids. I would gather not many people in town have ever visited the property. I think it would be a shame if they lit it up as a torch or whatever you'd want to call it, to light that property up. I didn't consider light pollution or noise pollution. But I do have one or two specific questions. This subdivision is in 4 parts. One being the school, the ring. Will that have any frontage on the historic business district? I don't know if anybody can answer that.
No, it's way back.
About 100.
The other question I had, and I'll attend further meetings about water, but there's a history of the property being used as an airport, and it's old history, but now there's a heliport on it. Will that heliport be used, and has that been considered in your planning process, or will it be considered? What kind of access will helicopters have to the property?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
I just want to make 2 things clear. First of all, we've made no proposal with respect to lighting. We need to do that, and it will be studied when we do it. We haven't even had a discussion as to what the lighting, if any, would be on the fields. I can tell you from my own perspective, this is a pretty hidden property, and having just worked for a period of time on a much less hidden property at the Hackley School over in Greenberg, the lighting capacity, the ability to direct lighting, et cetera, we don't expect any spillover if we do decide to do that. But we will come back with a proposal. But I just want to make it clear, there's been discussion about lighting, and we've made no proposal for that yet. And if we do, we will have to prove out that there would be no spillage off the property where people would be able to.
Does that go for sound as well?
I would expect it to be the same with sound. Obviously, sound, we're not proposing sound. It's going to occur. And then the question is, would you be able to hear it? But you're an awful far away from any of the neighboring properties here, so we're not really concerned over that. But we have to do we certainly would have to, the experts will have to do the studies. With regard to the heliport, yes, it's there. Yes, we're hoping to keep it there. That is our proposal, to keep it there. It has nothing to do with the school, unless, Tim, you're going to have a helicopter. I don't think it's proposed that the school's going to have a helicopter.
Drone projects, but that's a couple hundred yards.
It's not with respect to school, but we don't know if there is something else that could happen on that undeveloped land at some point. We would hope that maybe there would be a turnaround in some form at some point in time with regard to maybe another corporate headquarters or something. So we're not looking to lose. We'd like to keep it there. We have rights that are there. There are very few, but there's no intent to use it. But again, we'll have to make that proposal to you, and you'll study it, and you'll decide.
Just because I'm not familiar with that, so I know that it was once used for that. The heliport that you're referring to, or that part of it, that's within the 300 and whatever acres of the school, or on the other part?
It's
right in the ring.
It's within the ring?
It is within the ring.
Okay. You can
see it on the
is
picture.
likely to be something within the lease that we're discussing that will wind up being a ownership piece of the landlord as opposed to necessarily the school for use.
Rich, if you look at the picture when you get it down there.
It's just to the right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, okay.
But we will absolutely have to address that in our studies, and we will address it and we haven't had enough conversation about it because it's just not part of the major part of the proposal.
Could that be added or deleted if you wanted to? I mean, isn't that something that's pretty much federally regulated?
It is very difficult at this stage to have something like that. So it's an amenity for a piece of property that is a very interesting amenity to have that could be the difference that would separate you from somewhere else where they would not be able to get a new one approved through that very difficult process. We've been involved in some of it. It's very difficult to get that. So that's one of the reasons why we want to
So this would
maintain
be
it. Because
grandfathered,
it would be
basically.
grandfathered. And again, if we want to, we could have things where if we wanted to reactivate, we would have to come and ask for permission from you. There are things that we can do with this.
Oh, fair.
We're just not looking to lose the ability, but we have no current understand, none of us have one right now that we would expect.
You don't own a helicopter.
I do not.
At this point. At this point.
At this point, that's correct.
So these are all, yeah, Mike, you can come up. These are all very good questions, and as Mark just said, the Architectural Review Board will be looking at lighting and the structures that get proposed. The Planning Board will be going over subdivision site plan approvals. So this is basically, this is the ground level. The application came in just a month ago, 2 months ago, and this is a living, breathing project.
Hello, Mike McBride. As some of the previous people said, I think it's a great idea for this project to come forward, et cetera. I think there was 6,000 people with IBM, so I don't see it as any major traffic problems. And I am a traffic engineer. I think Joe knows me from way back. But my main question right now is in the presentation online and what was said tonight, they keep talking about 3,200, the existing parking spaces down to 600. And as the father of a guy that I used to take to Boston College or if there are fairs or anything, there's going to be 1,800 students. So at some points, there's going to be gatherings of the parents and between roughly the school teachers and the staff there, just a very rough number, 300 to 400, and possibly if 50% of the parents show up, 900. I mean, the numbers get you up to around 2,000. I mean, it's nothing insurmountable, but I just don't understand the presentation of 3,200 down to 600.
Good point.
Okay.
Okay.
Good point.
Thank you.
Mike and then Vicki.
Michael Barnhart, Somers Open Space Committee. I think we're very interested in this as well. I looked over the environmental assessment form as well as your memo, Saret, regarding what you felt would need to be reviewed, and we'd want to second everything you had there. There were just a couple of items that I think we'd want to add and then get more. Obviously, I'm sure there'd be more information with a formal proposal, but working from the microscopic to the macroscopic, one thing on the EAF I noticed there was the only federally listed species that was noted was northern long-eared bat as a potential species of concern. However, one of the lines in the EAF includes also New York State listed species, and the town of Somers also recognizes the Westchester County list of endangered species. And I should say that the Open Space Committee did visit this property some years ago and did a survey of it. We wrote up a memo which we shared with IBM, and there is some interesting habitat up there, and even within the ring road, especially since there's been a lot less use over the last years, I think you may find more, for example, grassland bird species, things like that up there than you would have before. So I think we'd like an expansion of the lists that are considered when inventorying species on the property. I'm very glad to hear that the existing stormwater infrastructure is going to be given a once-over. I'm sure it needs some work. There are a lot of detention ponds and basins that are connected with the existing system. The one thing I would be concerned about, because there's an awful lot of water that flows off that site and down into the reservoir, is that whatever we do up there, we don't disturb the existing patterns of water flow into the various water courses, intermittent streams, perennial streams, and so forth that exist on the property. It's pretty complex, and there's a very large hardwood swamp on, I guess it would be the southwest end of the ring road. And just in terms of the way wastewater, or stormwater rather, got funneled around, we would hope that it wouldn't, dry out some of those areas. We've seen that happen on other building sites, so that would be something we'd want noted specifically in the way it's reviewed. Other than that, I don't really have much in the way of comment, except that I'm really glad to hear that parking lots will be ripped out and pervious surface will replace it. I noted that I think on the proposal it says you're going to use natural turf as opposed to artificial turf, so that all sounds really good. But of course, being the Open Space Committee, we're concerned about protecting as much open space as possible, and we've always been very concerned about the IBM property and the Pepsi property. We're very glad to hear also that there are no plans to develop out the Pepsi property. There's quite a history, actually, of proposals that have gone down to defeat, which is fine with us. But since you're on one parcel, there is, of course, quite a bit of other open space there, and from some of your remarks, it sounded like you might want to hold some of it out for potential future development. But there's a lot of it also that would be very difficult to develop. And we'd be very interested in discussing the fate of the rest of it, and whether there was openness to things like conservation easements and so on being placed on any of it. We also, I believe IBM also owns, so I assume Sebastian Capital also owns the 163-acre parcel across the road, across Route 100 from that parcel. Is that true?
I believe that's true.
Yeah. So we would also be interested in what sort of ideas you had concerning that parcel as well. It's a very sensitive one, and it contains much of the wetlands that are formed by Brown Brook and then flow out to the Muscoot Reservoir. So that's also a very sensitive property that we're concerned about. So that's more in the area of sort of what kind of information you'd be willing to share about future plans for that, for those other parcels. You also mentioned hiking trails. This is another priority of our group, so we're curious about what your proposals would be there. We're also working on developing town networks, and if there was some possibility of connection between your network and town networks, that would be something we'd also be very interested in as well. So those are the sort of things that I think leapt out when we had initially discussed this and when I looked at the proposal as well. And I think that covers it.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Vicki? Yeah.
Hi, Vicki Gannon. I'm on the planning board. My question kind of goes to you, Joe. Looking at the proposal, how much in... Sorry, Vicki Gannon. I'm on the planning board. My question kind of goes to you, Joe. Listening to the proposal, how much information do you need about the actual activity that takes place in the buildings? I'm thinking about dormitories, use of water, in order to get really good handle on the water numbers. It really just keeps coming back in large part to the water. How much level of detail are you going to need from the applicant? I'm thinking you've got students, you need laundry machines, all sorts of things, especially if we're kind of close on it. And also, can we relate that to what's called development lot, which I think is parcel 2 that we'll be subdividing? That's the 453 that holds out the possibility of some activity in the future as regards the wastewater treatment plant. And because if we're going to be nearing capacity on that, it sounds like it wouldn't be available should there come a point in time when some activity of whatever nature would be proposed on that lot. So I think we'd be remiss if we really didn't acknowledge the impact of making close to 100% use of the existing facility will be on the applicant and everybody in town on that future lot. So I leave it to you to address all that. And also, Mr. McBride, I'm absolutely with you on the issue of traffic. What happens at graduation? Just something to be factored in, and how we reserve some land that could maybe be multi-purpose and that a car could be on.
Right, and so I'll answer the question on the the calculation of water usage and disposal is very much related to what's going to be going on. Right, there will be. We talked about this the other earlier this week. We're going to need to have a pretty good understanding of you know, what's the square footage that is being used for you know, for the boarding, what's the square foot, you know, what are the labs, what are those labs used for? I mean, there could be labs that are robotic labs, right? That probably don't use a lot of water, but there might be others that are more chemical, you know, chemistry labs that would require more. So we're gonna have to definitely understand that distribution, and there's a lot of standard guidance out there around all these different pieces of, boarding use, this square footage times this usage equals some number, laboratory, this square footage times this usage, classroom space, right? And there's a lot of standards that we'll use to come up with that complete list and that complete flow. But I also know that the applicant is going to look at similar schools, and we're going to try to balance, you know, what might be published available data with what there might be some actual data to, and get to the right, to the right endpoint in that way. So we will be looking at all the things that's an important part of what we need to do. Now,
So
relative to the treatment plant, my suspicion is that this, given current permit, current technologies, this facility will eat up all of the capacity. So as it relates to future capacity, for future development, under that current condition, unlikely to happen. However, that doesn't preclude the applicant from going and seeking permit modifications in some way to get more flow. And there's ways that can be accomplished through most of these plants operate on some kind of a TMDL or a maximum amount of let's just say contaminant or nutrient that could be discharged out of the back end. So if they increase their treatment where they can produce a lower number, they could create more capacity that way, right? But that's a whole permitting process, and the DEP watershed is not an easy thing to overcome. So there, I don't want to say that the existing treatment plant, if 100% used on this project, would never be able to serve something else. A lot of things have to happen, though, in order for it to serve another use.
And just a follow-up question, I apologize for not going up, so I'll try to say it loudly, and you can maybe repeat it. You mentioned the idea of labs, chemistry labs, proximity to the reservoir. Are there any particular, and this is a science and engineering focused curriculum, is there any particular constraints or concerns about water use, disposal of hazardous materials, et cetera,
Yeah.
given our proximity where we are?
Absolutely, that there absolutely is. Those are things that contribute to those loads I was talking about that are going to be different, that we'll have to take into consideration. But I also will note that laboratory space, whether it be as part of a university or part of other facilities, are highly regulated. There's very, very explicit and stringent requirements that are well documented on what they need to do, and of course we'll have to be taking a look at those things. But from my end, we'll be focused on that water side to make sure that chemicals are being managed in a way that's not creating spills, right? And also that any chemicals that find their way into our wastewater discharge, we understand what those are so that they can appropriately be treated.
So Joe, does this impact our phosphorus goals, or how does it, or?
Well, that's what the Watershed Inspector General is interested in. My suspicion is, a lot of it will come down to, the short answer is no, because
Okay.
they're going to be required to not increase phosphorus, right? And actually, we're going to.
Okay, will help us meet our goals
We'll be
then.
looking to push. We'll be looking to push for phosphorus reductions on the site, and yes, if we can push and achieve phosphorus reductions, we can, especially through the removal of impervious surfaces, we could look at those as part of our obligations under our MS4 permit. Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes.
No, you gotta come up to the mic.
Is the,
Oh, wait.
Hold the thought.
Wait.
Hold the thought.
Bob Madigan again. The property's being, you want the property to be subdivided into 4 sections. The
You got to
wastewater-
talk to the mic.
Parcels.
You gotta get the
Four
mic.
parcels, sorry. Is this wastewater parcel, or it's on its own parcel, right?
Yeah.
With other utilities, I would imagine. Is that dedicated only to the school, or is it going to be used for other development?
Well, I
other
haven't seen the
parcels?
proposal. I haven't seen the the final application has come in. But what it appears to me is that and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I think the landowner or Sebastian will maintain ownership of the treatment plant right? And that treatment plant will be used by the school. And like I've said, I believe without modification of the permit, there will be limited, if any, opportunity for it to support any other development other than that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Anybody else have a question? Okay, yeah, Nancy.
Nancy Gerbino, I'm on the planning board. A question, it's clear what we're doing jointly, what the applicant is doing, but are you also simultaneously applying to the state for your permission? You have already initiated that application? So my real question, because I probably didn't hear correctly, what will the name of the school be something different when you get your, so it isn't going to be the Somers Academy, it's going to be something else?
I really wish it was Somers.
Okay. I had a small reason for asking that, because there already was a Somers Academy here for about 80 years. Not for that reason, I just thought you might want the history, but you don't need the history. And I think that answers that question. But I wanted to, we're all kind of excited about this. I'm sure you're more than excited because you have to worry about whether it's going to work or not. But I would like to give credit to two people, because although a lot of us are involved here, if it weren't for these two people, this couldn't happen. The first person was David Portman, principal of Frederick P. Clark. He was the father, the author of our first master plan back in 1973. And if we didn't do that and follow his direction and be good students of him, we would never have IBM. And the second person who should be credited, she isn't here tonight, and not good on names at this age, but she's the gal who put all this together, in my opinion. What is her name?
Roxana?
Roxana
Gerard.
Gerard, yes. I think we would not be here dealing with this without those two individuals. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Well said. Well, we have all this brain trust in this room at one time. Any other questions that are? Okay. All right, so, Saret, at this time, I think for the benefit of everybody, if you could walk us through now what next steps, when the applicants are coming to the planning board, architectural review board, the open space committee. I mean, what's in store?
Okay, well, we have to develop a detailed outline. I did a draft that I shared with Roland and you. We're already out of sync with that one, and that's why it was a draft. But we're waiting for the applicant. First, you have a couple of things you're going to do tonight. One, you're going to accept lead agency, and you're going to execute the contract so Mike can officially be, hired by the town to proceed with his review, though he has already been doing so. But separate from that, the next steps would be that the applicant, we're going to take the comments that came in and we're going to add some of them to the outline that we prepared, give them back to the applicant. But we're really now waiting for them to give us a site plan and some applications. Mark, you can give us some timing. We keep hearing a couple of weeks. We're not sure what that is.
Right, so just to make it clear, it's not that we're doing nothing, we're doing a lot.
Sure.
Some of this is actually going in a little different order than it normally would because we're doing so much right up front. What's occurred is that we knew that there were certain issues identified early on that we had to figure out immediately so that we could freeze our site plan and come in with something that we knew was buildable. One of those issues was raised earlier by Bonnie, which had to do with wetlands, and we did find some wetlands inside the ring road that we're gonna have to deal with. It's probably gonna make us shift possibly the athletic facility. It doesn't impact any of the buildings that are already there, but there's some certain locations for the fields that may have to get shifted, and there's certain locations for the athletic facility that may need to get shifted from the map that you saw today. So we're working feverishly first to get the wetlands confirmed so that we know that they are exactly what we think they are. And then we're gonna have to make those adjustments to the plan, and then we will have a site plan. So we're working a little bit, some of it is us. Beth had to go out and do her work. Now she's gotta get them confirmed. We've gotta show those materials in, make sure that we're all on the same page with where they are. And then we will make the shift to the site plan. And then at that point, we'll have a site plan, which then we can work out the final, that we have to get a survey done and finished so that we can finalize the subdivision, and then those things can go forward to the planning board. So that's kind of what's holding us up. It doesn't stop us, however, from moving forward with, as we've started with you, the zone change, with the proposal that's in there. It has been mentioned that we have to get more information specific with regard to things like little details like FAR and other things that have to go into the proposal that we'll have before you. But the primary things, that some of the most time-consuming things that we're gonna have to do are the studies. So tonight's meeting was critical to us so that we can get an understanding of everything you want us to study, so we can put our people to work, because the process is, we do the initial studies, we bring them in, and then they get reviewed by the professionals for the town. They look at them, they make comments, they say, this isn't satisfactory, we need more detail. It's a back and forth between the consultants. And then when the consultants are satisfied that we've given you all the information that you've asked for, that's when it comes back that you get a look at it, and then you get your own fresh look at it, and the public gets a look at it to make a determination as to whether everyone's in agreement with what we've done. So the process from our standpoint, the big lead, time lead for us, that what we need the most time for are the studies, and that's why we wanted to get that started as quickly as possible.
Could you just give us?
Let me just add something to that real quick, Anthony. So one of the things we agreed to early on, right, so that the applicant doesn't, to try to, given the timeline we're looking at here, right, I'll just use the wastewater as an example, right? I wouldn't want the applicant, we agreed that the applicant isn't going to just go and work off by themselves and hand us a report. We're going to break it into pieces that are critical elements. So for example, critical element number 1 is understanding flows and loads. Well, let's get on the same page of what the flows and loads are first, so that the rest of the study can be done from a position of common ground, right? And I think by doing that, it prevents them from spending all this time doing a big report. Then we review it, and then they got to redo the whole report, right? So we're working together in that partnership way. We've agreed to do that to keep streamline this as much as we can.
Oh, good point.
And I should also say that's already going on between the two traffic engineers.
Could you just give us some scope, talk about the scope of the state application, and is there any downstream implications to what we have to do here?
Tim, you want to talk a little bit about the state licensing?
Well, you know what, I was going to introduce Tim to the boards here. Just give us an introduction, because he's got a lot of energy. He's the driving force behind the school.
So I'm Tim DeCipio, the CEO of Evergreen Ridge. We're the developer and management company that'll do the school and work on things like academic programming, which we really haven't talked a whole lot about right now. Been in international education about 22 years. Worked with education technology companies, worked with big companies like Microsoft and Dell, and major school districts and private schools, and spent some years with one of the largest private schools in the world, building their enrollment. Regarding, and at the last meeting, this came up as well. So in terms of state accreditation, we've got to meet 21 points that the state has given us. And so we've got an academic programming team. Unfortunately, none of them are here today, but they will be at future meetings. But we've talked to Albany about what we have to meet in terms of requirements and accreditation, and our team are squared away on that. So we're really beginning stages. We haven't even finished the academic programming, but we've got a team of 5 people that are working on that in terms of bringing our academic curriculum, our required curriculum, our AP curriculum, and if you were here or saw the online presentation, the expanded curricular areas. And so it's a lot of work to do. We want to get that together before we start showing the state what we've got, but we know it has to get done in terms of accreditation and getting what we need to be a school, including a CO. Yeah.
Okay. But will there be any downstream impacts to what we got to get done here from that?
I don't anticipate.
Unlikely.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Okay.
I assume that in doing that for New York State, you'll have people who are experienced in New York State
Right.
education
Yeah.
law and requirements.
Yeah, most of our team, 98% of our team are within 30 minutes of where we are right now. So, and they've one of them even worked for the state. So, yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you.
Get used to this. This is for the applicants. I recently read the 2016 comprehensive plan. It was an update to our, I guess our
Master plan.
Master
planning
plan.
within the town, and it goes very nicely from area to area within the town, and it suggests ways that we can improve our town, having to do with traffic, open space, sustainability, touches on a lot of different topics. What I can see basically is the quality of life. What I'd like to ask the applicant is, how does this development, this subdivision, increase or enhance the quality of life of the ordinary Somers resident? That's for whoever wants to.
Yeah, taxes, there you
Wow,
go.
that's a philosophical.
I'll start with the fact that tonight was a session where there were questions going to be posed, and we were going to have answers to everything, and I'm not going to answer all of it tonight, but, I mean, from my own standpoint, being involved in economic development mostly my whole career, the first thing I would suggest is on an economic basis with respect to quality of life. You have an empty facility up there, and not only is it a shame that something that beautiful is not being used, but from an economic standpoint of the town, it has been a very large percentage of the rateable of this community on the commercial side for many years, and it is something that has kept the taxes down of the residential community for many years as to what it's contributed. If it maintains its vacant status, the taxes off that property will be significantly decreased. As of now, while there may very well be a cert that's pending, that's something, in my experience, when there are certiораries pending on a development proposal, those things seem to disappear when new zoning appears, because that's the way things work. And, so at the end of the day, what is in everybody's best interest is to get this back on the rolls and producing income, so not only for the person who owns the property, but for the community as a whole. As far as the other quality of life issues, we've already talked about things like potentially having some shared use of some of the facilities up there, where there's going to be, I know Tim has already spoken to the superintendent of schools at Somers and to the private school as well, to the high school principal, to talk about how there might be some shared opportunities for both the new school and others. We're going to have certain equipment and facilities up there that may not be available to some of the other locales. There could be potential for sports teams playing each other. I think this is something that if you look at other communities where these very high-end and successful and well-known boarding schools are in places like Connecticut and other places, and even New York City now, you'll see that they become very good corporate citizens and communities. So I think that's another way that we can do that. And what I'd also hope and believe is that when you have 250 some odd new employees there, forgetting the students for a moment, those are people that need to buy homes somewhere near where they work. So I think that'll add to the potential for the housing market here in Somers, which all of us here in the world today are concerned about our homes and the values of our homes, and also people who are going to spend money in the local stores, the local restaurants, the local. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can contribute. I think a lot of these things are going to come out in some of the studies that we're doing, a socioeconomic study. But on a personal level, I only see positives coming out of this.
Yeah, I want to say that the master plan, when it was designed, it outlined, a balanced use of land in Somers. I think it's maybe about 11% of the land is commercial, and I think this maintains that, that concept, and it maintains it in a fashion that preserves, mostly open spaces. So I think we're fulfilling some of those, those goals and those tenets set out by the folks that designed that plan in 1973.
Well, let me say this. Whenever any proposal comes in front of the town board over the course of the last decade or more, there's always the issues that have come up tonight. One, how does it affect the water? We're in a sensitive area. We have an obligation to the town, but also the people in New York City and everywhere else that uses reservoir water. Not only, and also the law requires it, that we be wise stewards of that water. And everyone in town always talks about what's the traffic implications of every single proposal that comes through, from the new DeChicos and the Boniel proposal and other things that have come up on Route 6 and even down Route 100. And of course, in Somers, we try to take pride in being one of the leaders in green technology. I know it's one of the things you mentioned on your SECRA application there that we'll be interested in, especially because if it's a STEM academy, we would think that there would be some innovations there, and we would be anxious to see what those are. And then, of course, with every business that comes into town that requires a zoning change, we're looking for what is the benefit of the community, as the gentleman said. And so there are the general, as you said, the financial implications of the pizzeria does well, and maybe a hotel close does well, and maybe it does affect property values. And it may be there's some partnership with the schools, and maybe there's some things our schools have that this academy or whatever you call it might need. And of course, we would always want to partner with that. But I think also I'd be anxious to know, this is sort of like when Amazon's coming into the Queens now, and everybody, one guy was saying today, I don't know if it's a representative of Amazon or a city councilman in New York City. They're saying, that Jeff Bezos is going to come in. Maybe he can use our heliport, actually, matter of fact, if he's going to do that, is come and say, hi, I'm Jeff Bezos, how can I help? And we hope that the Somers Academy or whatever is going to come and say, hi, we're the academy and how can we help? And that's what, of course, we would want, because what our job is help you, but also at the end to say, we have a better town because of that. So if there are some community benefits that you can think of, and of course we did mention, we think it would benefit you and benefit the town for a sidewalk from that railroad station up to where you are and then into town, where your students could utilize that going to the railroad and also coming into town to the pizzeria or the DeChicos or wherever. Those are types of things I think that we should explore in the future, though, and then I think everyone would see that this is a partnership that benefits both sides.
I would absolutely agree. I'll only mention, if you offer us the same $3 billion, we'll definitely build you a sidewalk. I know Roxana's in for the sidewalk on that.
Yeah. So one other point I wanted to make is, as has been laid out tonight and at previous meetings, there's going to be quite a bit of interior renovations. I would hope that you would use local trades and plumbers and electricians that are currently in our area. So I see that as a benefit to the local economy as well.
Absolutely, and we will work with you on that. There's ongoing conversations at the county and others in how to do that. And I can tell you right now, and we hope that this continues for the next couple of years, the hardest part is getting people to work, getting enough construction workers on site. There really is a shortage these days. There's so much development going on around Westchester County. So I really don't think that is going to be an issue, because the unemployment rate is rather low in the trades these days, at least as far as I know from the people that I've been working with. And they've had to actually go outside because they're having trouble finding people locally on a lot of these jobs.
Well, that's encouraging. Thank you.
What's that?
Union halls are all advertising.
Absolutely. I can tell you with certain, I was actually at an IDA meeting this morning in the county, and we were having those conversations. And there's a currently, I don't want to call it a shortage, but there's currently within the building trades, they are very well engaged right now, much more so than they were 4 or 5 years ago.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll move on to number 3 of our town board agenda, which is I will make a motion for the town board to accept the agency status, lead agency status for Somers Academy per memo dated November 13th from Saret Dim, Director of Planning.
Second.
Any discussion?
None
Not?
further.
I think we did already.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And the final agenda item here is make a motion to authorize the supervisor to execute the traffic consulting service agreement for Mike Alante for Somers Academy per memo dated November 13th from Saret Dim, Director of Planning. I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that?
None further.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
You're official. There you go. Welcome.
All right, our next regularly scheduled work session is December
week.
6th
A week from
at
today.
7 p.m.
Next week we could, come on
What?
back.
Do it all again.
Yeah, it was fun.
I doubt it'll be this crowded.
Yeah, well, it was great to have you all here tonight, I have to say.
Why don't you close the meeting before they?
So, any other further business want to be discussed? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just real quick,
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
I gotta
Good night, Somers.